Hey, it's great Mr. Herzberg here. Today is May 4th, Monday, 2020, which means we're going to be finishing up Fahrenheit 451. We've got about 12 or 13 pages left. We're going to be going over our journal, and we're also going to be going over our homework from Friday. Let's get started. So, today's standard is Reading Informational Text 8.5. So this week we are going to be analyzing paragraph structure. I remember back in like 6th grade, I tell you guys a good paragraph should always kind of be built like a hamburger. In a sense, you've got the top bun, your meat, your ingredients, your condiments, and then your bottom one. Your paragraph should be built similarly. You've got an opening sentence and a closing sentence, like your top and bottom bun holding it all together. And then you've got supporting details and supporting facts and things like that to all put it in the middle to make it work. And anytime a paragraph's built like that really well, you're going to have a great understanding from your audience who's reading that paragraph. So you're going to get, in your Google Doc today, you'll number 1 to 3, and you're going to have 3 different paragraphs to read. And you're going to look at those really closely. You're going to analyze them, that word analyze, which means to look at something really close. You're going to decide how each sentence helped you understand the paragraph. So remember, every paragraph should be how long? 5 sentences minimum, 7 maximum. So somewhere between 5 to 7 is a good paragraph. So I want you to look through these, and I want you to tell me how each of these sentences acts like a delicious, juicy hamburger. Okay? You should have a good introductory topic, you should have supporting details, and then you should close it all out. Okay? So you go through all 3 of these today, these 3 sentences in your Google Doc, and tell me what makes them a good sort of paragraph. Okay? If you have any questions, you know what to do. Hit me up on Google Classroom, leave a comment, email me, or come to the live Google Meet from 2 to 2:30, okay? All right, cool. Let's go ahead and go over our questions from Fahrenheit 451 last Friday. What do the police suggest everyone do at the same time? So the search goes out for Montag, and the police come over the radio, the TV, and basically tell everyone to be locking their doors and to search for Montag through their windows and keep their eyes out for him and alert the police immediately. What did Montag do when he got to the river? So he's been following a train track this entire time that Faber told him to look for. And when he gets to the river, he sort of starts seeing a fire in the distance. So he jumps in and starts swimming to the other side. Because the blank wouldn't stop burning, Montag would. Because the fire wouldn't stop burning, Montag would. Remember, fire no longer in Montag's mind means destruction and erasing. Fire, he feels the sun beating down on him after he got out of the cold river, and he decides from then on out that fire and heat and warmth are never going to be the same thing to him ever again. Warmth will never mean destruction, it means comfort and life-giving. What did Montag think when he smells the hay? So he kind of lays down in the ground and looks up at the sky, and he smells the hay around him, and he decides he's different, he's changed, he's noticing things, and that the natural world around him is honest. What did Montag think was looking at him? He thought it was an animal or something. He sees eyes and hears voices. What is it looking at him? It's a couple of things. It is animals, but it's also a good ways away. He sees some men at a campfire. What did Montag hit with his foot? I'm going to let you guys tell me on that one. You answer that one. What was the single fact that Montag could not prove? That they were actually after him this whole time, but that he couldn't prove what they had done in the search for him. Like, he thought maybe all this awful stuff they'd done, he could never prove it. What is the colorless fluid in the small bottle supposed to do? It's supposed to kind of wipe his mind and clean his soul in a way. What do they offer Montag? A clear fluid. Why is the chase still going on if they have lost Montag? Now, this is an interesting moment in the story. He sits down with these old retired professors that they call themselves like hobos or homeless men. And they pull up a TV and they said, watch this. And they continue to watch the search. They lie to the people because it's a controlled society. And it's better to have someone on TV getting caught that they claim is Montag than nobody getting caught. What does Montag see in the portable viewer? He sees an innocent man that they've picked out, they claim that's Montag, get killed, put under a searchlight by a police helicopter and get killed by one of the hounds. How is it possible that not even Montag's friend would recognize that the man they caught wasn't him? They purposefully blurred out the person they caught. So the police knew it wasn't him, but the people at home viewing did not. They'd never be able to identify who it was because they couldn't see. So let's see how Montag feels now. He's with these new men. Let's finish out the book. These men, again, they're retired Harvard professors and Ivy League professors. Colleges have been burned and destroyed, and teachers like myself and professors have been scattered to the dregs of society to live like homeless people. Many of them did so by choice because, you know, being an academic mind, why would you want to live in a world like the one Montag lives in, where people burn books and desecrate education? All right. I'm going to start on 143. They didn't show the man's face into focus. Did you notice even your best friends couldn't tell if it was you, Montag? They scrambled the screen just enough to let the imagination take over. Hell, he whispered. Hell, that's what we're living in. Montag said nothing now. Looking back, sat with his eyes fixed to the black screen trembling. Mr. Granger touched Montag's arm. Welcome back from the dead, Montag. How does it feel? Montag nodded. Granger went on. Well, you're here. You may as well know us all. This over here is Fred Clement. He's a former occupant of the Thomas Hardy Chair at Cambridge in the years before it became an atomic engineering school. This over here is Dr. Simmons. He's from UCLA. He was a specialist in Ortega Gasset. Professor West here did quite a bit for his ethics, an ancient study now, for Columbia University quite some years ago. Reverend Pat over here gave a few lectures 30 years ago and lost his flock because, well, one Sunday and the next for his views. He's been bumming with us some time now. Myself, well, I wrote a book called The Fingers in the Glove, the proper relationship between the individual and society. And here I am. Welcome to the group, Montag. I don't belong with you, said Montag at last slowly. I've been an idiot this whole time. Why would you want me? We're used to that. We all made the right kind of mistakes, I guess you could call it, or we wouldn't be here. When we were separate individuals, we all had just rage and anger. And I struck a fireman when he came to burn my library years ago. I've been running ever since. You want to join us, Montag? I would. What are you going to offer us? Nothing. I mean, I thought I'd taken part of the book of Ecclesiastes and maybe a little of Revelation, but I don't even have that anymore. The book of Ecclesiastes, well, that'd be a nice addition. Where was it? Here. Montag touched his head. Ah. Granger smiled and nodded. What's wrong? Is that all right? Said Montag. It's better than all right. It's perfect. Granger turned to the Reverend. Reverend, we got a book of Ecclesiastes around here somewhere? One, a man named, I think his name's Harris, in Youngstown over a ways. Okay. Montag. Granger took his shoulder firmly. I want you to walk with me here. Guard your health. If anything should happen to Harris, you, my friend, are the book of Ecclesiastes. You see how important you've become just in the last minute? But I've forgotten it. Nah, nothing's lost forever. We have ways to shake you down. Your clinkers at your memory for you. I can't. I've tried. Don't try, Montag. It'll come when you need it. All of us here have photographic memories, you see. But spend a lifetime learning how to block off the things that are really in there. Simmons here, well, he's worked on it for 20 years, and we've got the method down to where we can pretty much recall anything that's been read to us once. Would you like that someday, Montag, to read, Plato's Republic? Of course I would. Well, talk to me. I'm Plato's Republic. Like to read, Marcus Aurelius? Mr. Simmons, over here, is Marcus Aurelius. How do you do? Said Mr. Simmons. Hello, said Montag. Oh yeah, I want you to meet Jonathan Swift, the author of that evil political book, Gulliver's Travels. And this other fellow over here, well, he's Charles Darwin. And this one here is Schopenhauer. And this one here is Einstein. And this one here at my elbow is Mr. Albert Schweitzer, a very kind philosopher indeed. Here we all are, Montag. Aristophanes, Mahatma Gandhi, Gautama Buddha, and Confucius. And Thomas Love Peacock, and Thomas Jefferson, and Mr. Lincoln, if you please. You see, we are also Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Everyone laughed quietly. How can this be? I don't understand, said Montag. It is, replied Granger, smiling. You see, we're book burners too. We read the books and burnt them, afraid they'd be found. Microfilming, well, that didn't pay off. We were always traveling. We didn't want to bury the film and come back later. Always a chance of discovery. Better to keep it in the old heads where no one can see it or suspect it. Well, we're all bits and pieces of history and literature, and international law, Byron, Tom Paine, Machiavelli, Christ, it's all here. And the hour's getting late, and, well, the war's begun. And we're all out here, and the city is over there, all wrapped up in its own coat of 1,000 colors. What do you think, Montag? I think I was blind to try going at things my way, planting books in firemen's houses and sending in alarms. Don't worry about it. You did what you had to do. Carried out a national scale, it may have worked beautifully. But our way is simpler. Think about it. It's better. All we want to do is keep the knowledge we think we need intact and safe. We're not out to incite or anger anyone. Not yet. For if we are destroyed, you see, the knowledge dies with us. Perhaps for good. We are not model citizens. In our own special way, we walk the old tracks. We lie in the hills at night, and the city people let us be. We're stopped and searched occasionally, but there's nothing ever on our persons to incriminate us. The organization is flexible, it's loose, fragmentary. Some of us have had plastic surgery on our faces and our fingerprints redone. Right now, we have a horrible job. We're waiting for the war to begin, and as quickly as it ends. It's not pleasant, Montag, but then we're not in control. We're the odd minority crying in the wilderness. When the war's over, perhaps we can be of some use to the world. Do you really think they're going to listen to you? Ever? If not, well then we're just going to have to wait. We'll pass the books on to our children, by word of mouth. And we'll let our children wait, in turn, on the other people. A lot of will be lost away, of course, but you see, you can't make people listen. You can't. They have to come on their own time. What happened and why the world blew up under them, it won't last. How many of you are there here? Thousands. On the roads, the abandoned railroad tracks. Tonight, well, Burns is on the outside, libraries inside. It wasn't planned, you see. Each man had a book he wanted to remember, and then he did, you see. There was over a period of about 20 years when we actually met each other traveling and got the loose network together and set up our plan. The most important single thing we had to point out as ourselves is that we're not important. I want to say that again to you, Montag. We are not important. We mustn't be pedants. We were not to feel superior to anyone else in the world. We're nothing more than a dust jacket for a book, of no significance otherwise. Some of us live in small towns. Chapter 1 of Thoreau's Walden in Green River. Chapter 2 in Willow Farm, Maine. Why, there's one town in Maryland, about 27 people. No bomb will ever touch that town. And there lies the complete essays of a man named Bertrand Russell. Pick up that town almost and flip the pages so many to a person, and when the war's over someday, some year, the books can all be written again, and the people will be called, one by one, to recite what they know, and we'll set it up and type it until, God forbid, another dark age happens. When we might have to look and do the whole damn thing all over again. But that's the wonderful thing about man. You see, he never gets too discouraged or disgusted that he gives up doing it all over again, because he knows very well it's important and worth doing. Well, what are we going to do tonight? Asked Montag. Wait a second. We're going to move downstream a little ways, just in case. He began throwing dust and dirt in the fire, and the men helped, and Montag helped, and in the wilderness the men all moved their hands, putting out the fire together. They stood by the river in the starlight. Montag saw the luminous dial of his waterproof 5 o'clock in the morning, and another year ticked by, and in a single hour dawn waited, and beyond the river. Why do you trust me? Asked Montag. A man moved in the darkness. Your look was enough for us. You haven't seen yourself in a mirror lately, have you? Beyond that, the city has never cared so much about us to bother with an elaborate chase like that to find us. See, a few crackpots with verses in their heads can't touch them. And they know it, and we know it. Everyone knows it. So long as the vast population doesn't wander about quoting, Magna Carta and the Constitution, everything's fine. The firemen were enough to check that out, now and then. The cities, you see, they don't bother us. Whew, you look like hell, Montag. They moved along the banks of the river. Montag tried to see the men's faces, the old men's faces he remembered from the firelight, lined and tired. He was looking for a brightness, a resolve, a triumph, to hardly seem to be there. Perhaps he had expected their faces to burn and glitter with the knowledge they carried, to glow as lanterns glow, with the light in them. But all the light had come from a campfire, and these men had seen no different than any of the others who had run a long race. Searched the long search, seen good things destroyed, gathered to wait for the end of the party, the blowing of the lamps. They weren't all certain of the things they carried in their heads might actually make every future dawn glow with a purple light. They were sure nothing would ever save the books from the fire or the file behind their quiet eyes. The books were waiting, with their pages uncut, for the customers who might come by in latter years, some with clean and some with dirty fingers. Montag squinted from one face to another as they walked. Don't judge a book by its cover, one said, and they all laughed. There was a shriek from jets overhead. Long before the men looked up, Montag stared back at the city with a faint glow. My wife's back there. I'm sorry to hear that, Montag. The cities won't do well in the next few days. It's strange, Granger. I don't miss her. It's strange. I don't feel much of anything, said Montag. If she dies, I realized a moment ago, I don't even think I'd feel sad. It isn't right. Something's got to be wrong with me. Listen. Granger took him and held him in his arms. When I was a boy, my grandfather died, and he was a sculptor. He was also a very kind man who had a lot of love to give to the world. He helped clean up the slums in our town. And he made toys for us, and he did a million other things in his life. He was always busy with his hands. When he died, I suddenly realized I wasn't crying for him, but all the things he did. I cried because he would never do them again. He would never, ever carve another piece of wood, help us raise doves or pigeons in the backyard, or play the violin the way he did, or tell jokes the way he did. He was part of us, and when he died, well, all his actions stopped dead, and there was no one to do them just the way he used to. You see, he was an individual. He was important. I've never gotten over his death. I often think what wonderful carvings never came to birth because he died. How many jokes were missing from the world? How many homing pigeons untouched by his hands? He shaped the world. He did things for the world. The world was bankrupt of 10 million fine actions. The night passed. He passed on. Montag walked. Millie. What's that? Well, my wife. Poor Millie. Poor Millie. I can't remember anything. I think of her hands, but I don't see them doing anything. They just hung there at her side, and she just laid there with a cigarette was in them or something. It's all just, he turned and glanced back. What did you give to the city, Montag? Ashes. What did the others give to each other? Nothing. Granger stood looking back with him. Everyone must leave something behind, Montag, when he dies. My grandfather said, a child, a book, a painting, a house, a wall, a pair of shoes, a garden planted, something your hand touched some way your soul has somewhere to go when you die. And when people look at that tree over there, flower you planted there, it doesn't always matter what you do, as long as you change something from the way it was before you touched it. You see, the difference between the man who just cuts lawns and the real gardener is touching. The lawn cutter might just as well not have been there at all. The gardener will be there for a lifetime. You know, my grandfather showed me a V2 rocket film once, about 50 years ago. Have you ever seen the atom bomb mushroom cloud from 200 miles up, Montag? It's a pinprick, it's nothing. With wilderness all around it. You see, my grandfather ran off the V2 film a dozen times and hoped someday our cities would open up some and let the green of the land and the wilderness in more too. To remind people that we're allotted a little space here on the earth and that we survived in the wilderness, that we can take back what was given. And as easy as blowing its breath or sending us to the sea, when we forgot how close the wilderness is, someday it will come and get us. For we will have forgotten how terrible and real nature can be. You see? Granger turned to Montag. You see, my grandfather's been dead for years. But if you lifted my skull, by God, in the convolutions of my brain, you'd find big ridges of his thumbprint. He touched me. As I said earlier, he was a sculptor. I hated a Roman named Status Quo. He told me, stuff your eyes with wonder, he said. Live as if you dropped dead in 10 seconds. See the world. It's more frantic than any dream made or paid for in factories. Ask no for guarantees. Ask for no security. There never was such an animal. And if there were, it'd be related to the great sloth, which hangs upside down in the tree every day, sleeping its whole life away. Tell him with that, he said. Shake the tree and knock the great sloth down on his ass. Look, cried Montag. And the war began and ended in that instant. Later, the men were all around Montag, said if they hadn't really seen anything, perhaps the merest flourish of light and motion in the sky, perhaps the bombs were there, the jets, 10 miles, 5 miles, one up, like grain thrown on the heavens by the great sowing hand, and the bombs drifting with dreadful swiftness, yet slowness. The bombardment was all to the intensive purpose finished. Once the jets sighted their target, alerted the bombardier at 5,000 miles an hour, as quick as the whisper of a scythe, the war was finished. Once the bomb released was yanked, it was all over. A few seconds in time in history before the bomb struck, the enemies themselves were gone, and the visible world like bullets, where a savage and islander might believe because there was invisible. Yet the heart is suddenly shattered, the body falls in separate motions, and the blood astonished to be free, and its few precious memories, and the puzzle died. I'm going to stop there. I think we can finish this up on Wednesday, excuse me. It's getting really good, and I don't want to get to a point where you're going to become overwhelmed with information. Let's finish reading 153 to 158 on Wednesday. If you have any questions, let me know. Getting good stuff here. We've got Montag just waking up to a whole new world around him. The war's begun. Atomic bombs are dropping around them, and these men are so far away from cities and things that they're able to survive. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys at the Google Meet from 2 to 2:30. Talk to you soon.